Hello, Perfect Death here, and I'm gonna make a bit of a different video. I'm actually just going to talk about COVID 19 because I tested positive for COVID 19 over a week ago, so I figure I'll make a video about my experience with COVID and what happened. So, essentially, I came down with about 4 days of uh, fever. As a fever, I'd say, compared to the flu, the so COVID, the virus for that is SARS-CoV-2, but I'll probably just still call it COVID or the Rona. um, but compared to that, like if I were to talk about the flu about the same kind of fever time. I'd say overall my COVID was mild for a fever. While the flu, I've had some flus where I've got like the shakes, just like bedridden for like a day or two, and then maybe just like a mild flu after for another day or so. So for like a severe flu, um, yeah, they'll be pretty bad. Just wipes you right out. Whereas with this one, you know, I basically had like a sleepiness, just slept, had a bit of sweat, not not anything too severe. I'd say the main um, thing for me was the thing that really stands out for having a flu would be congestion. So that's like mucus, lots of mucus, lots of your my nose will just like flood with boogers, and even the throat will have mucus in it. Whereas for COVID, I didn't have any congestion, none at all. Instead, what I had was um, like a migraine, um, basically in eyes, and then like front and back of the head. So it was very different between the two. Like like I was saying, flu, you'll just flood up with boogers. COVID was just like I felt my eyes were sore, my like sinuses, so front and back felt sore. I didn't really have a cough for the COVID until after the fever. So after fever, so that was like day 5 and up, I developed this tickle in my chest. So that's what I have right now. Basically, I'll get like this tickle in my lungs, and then I'll end up with a feeling like I have to cough. With the flu, if I've, you know, after fever symptoms, I'll have like a cough because of a sore throat. Oop, there we go. So, now a big reason for why these are so different is the flu is definitely like a respiratory virus, whereas COVID, like a year ago when I was first looking into, what they were finding out about COVID, is it's a clotting disease. Um, Part of why it happens is when the virus it has a spike protein that's you could consider like the key to get into your body or to get into your cell. And clotting is like a side effect of when COVID, the ACE2, the ACE2 targeting spike protein on it, it causes as like a side effect of entering into your body, it triggers clotting. And these little tiny micro clots will, I'm guessing, causes like this feeling of a migraine. And afterwards, like when the clot when the clot's done, it basically becomes like a scar. So like scar tissue, and that's probably causing the irritation, right? This tickle is definitely like an irritation. So I've got this chest irritation, and I probably don't have any virus in my body, or at least like very very little, but that irritation in my lungs. So where your throat goes down, it'll branch off. Your lungs will branch off to, your lungs. You'll have these little branches. What to me seems like I've got is the irritation is like right in this branching area, right in here. So it didn't spread out to like the rest of your lungs because you've got these two big lobes, and I only really feel it in this central area. So I definitely would say mild. I didn't have any real severe breathing problems. I had a very, very faint breathing problems. So like, yeah, um, like I could just very lightly feel that I might have some difficulty breathing, and that's basically caused because you have these little tiny blood vessels, and so if you get a clot inside of that blood vessel, just like a little tiny thing that pops up in there, what happens is your body basically will bypass that clot with a new blood vessel, and so eventually it will break down and get rid of that blockage. And so like long-term symptoms for COVID generally are about that scarring, right? And your lungs are sensitive to that, so the rest of your body usually doesn't care that much. There's some concerns, like if you have heart problems, that you might have, these little scars in your heart that might cause problems. But this is definitely why they promote mask wearing so much, is because a mild case is usually because you had a low virus load. So what happens is when somebody speaks, and if you have a mask on, then the virus inside, so like the virus will ride on droplets in your mouth, and so when you speak, your tongue will kick up droplets, and these droplets want to go out when you're speaking because you're breathing out, but the mask will block the droplets. Some of the vapors from your breath will still leave. However, those vapors can't really carry a lot of virus, so they'll have a low viral load. So so what the mask does is it either traps most of the virus in there, or it causes it to go like down to the sides of the mask instead of going out. So when you're speaking to somebody, it drastically reduces the range that it'll spread the virus. So when I was going over close contacts and contact tracing, I basically was exposed to somebody who was positive but was in an asymptomatic stage. So they had virus in they were shedding virus, but they didn't have symptoms. And we were all wearing masks, but we were working in a building with a lot of like fan units, big industrial fan units. So there was a lot of noise. And so what was happening is sometimes you don't hear someone very well, and you'll ask them to repeat. And probably what happened was is they because it's a common thing I see some people do is they'll pull the mask down and then they'll speak loudly, which of course means that speaking loudly means you are putting more force behind what you're saying. You're putting more force behind these little droplets. And I get that they take the mask off because of either they think like one it muffles a little bit of what you say, but it's not that noticeable. So another part of it is people don't like that it's redirecting their breath. That feeling is weird. So some people will, by reflex, they'll pull their mask down and then they'll speak loudly. And of course, then that means that they're giving you a high load, right? They're shooting off this big high viral load, and it's going out because they took the mask off. And it's like that's when you want the mask on, right? Outside of that, if you're not near people or whatever, and you don't really you're not in a situation where you're going to be spreading virus to people. But if you are speaking loudly and you're speaking close to people, then like that's the perfect scenario for spreading both the flu and the SARS-CoV-2. So I know there's still quite a lot of people who are like going around like, oh, the virus doesn't exist, man. It's like a government conspiracy to control us, and wearing masks is just training to get us to be slaves, man. But honestly, we needed better mask culture. You look at a lot of the Asian cultures, like Japan, South Korea, they'll have a mask culture where they'll wear a mask just because, like, they'll want to wear one for the they're in these high population dense places and they might want a little bit of privacy, so they'll wear a mask. They might not want people spreading their germs to them, so they'll wear a mask. They might wear one because they, for whatever reason. And that's a good culture to have, particularly around flu seasons, of course, which is, going to be what we'll see, because COVID and flu, they are both respiratory viruses. They spread through that, even though, COVID's a clotting disease. The flu's definitely a respiratory disease. So, even for me, afterwards, I'll probably still want to wear a mask because, for one, at work, I work in a very, dusty environment, so a lot of cardboard particles outside, and it's quite nice having gotten used to wearing a mask that when I come home from work, I don't have to snort out a bunch of brown boogers that are filled with cardboard dust. And on the other hand, it's also useful come flu season because I've had one year where I caught 4 different flus. The flu vaccine now, it used to, like a couple of years ago, only have like three flu vaccines mixed into it because it's a blend for different flu strains. But now it's a quadroon. So the one that's going around here has four different flu viruses that it vaccinates you for. And I know for COVID, what's going on is as the virus replicates itself in the body, it will make mistakes. And some of these mistakes end up being useful for the virus. By useful, that means that it spreads easier. Um, and because the virus has gotten around to all of the different world's hotspots, places with high population density, that creates these and these. You could look at it like a chimp, like a room full of chimps on typewriters, right? That's basically what happens with virus mutations. Is they just make a huge amount of viruses, and then over time some of these will have mistakes, and then these mistakes make Shakespeare. They make something that is more distinct, that's better than just gibberish. God, this tickle is really annoying. And so we'll probably see it still circulate around every year come flu season. Just because it has hit all the because the flu virus has the same thing where it's hit all the world's hot spots, so it basically just circulates around. One of the strains will just go from one hotspot to another hotspot, then they'll like swap information, and then you'll end up with like new strains. And so that's why like the flu is still hanging around. So I honestly don't know how much longer I gotta deal with this cough. Might be a while because, like I say, it's scar tissue probably, and that scar tissue will linger around. It'll take your body a while to break this stuff down. I'm probably not infectious anymore. It's probably no more virus. It's probably just this irritation in my lungs. It's just being annoying. So, anyway, that'll be it for this video. Take care.